Allied soldiers, shocked. Axis engineers, stunned. In the final desperate winter of World War II, as the German Reich crumbled from every direction, one final weapon was taking shape. A steel monster so massive, so armored, that it looked less like a tank and more like a moving fortress. This was the Panzer VIII Maus, the heaviest, most powerful tank ever built in human history. In 1944, Hitler's obsession with wonder weapons had reached its peak. Rockets, jets, and experimental tanks filled secret facilities across Germany. But nothing came close to the Maus. Krupp's engineers were ordered to design a vehicle that would make every Allied tank obsolete, a weapon that could crush any defense and withstand any attack. The result was unlike anything the world had ever seen. A 188-ton colossus clad in nearly 10 inches of steel armor. A tank so large that when Allied pilots saw its blueprints, they thought it had to be a mistake. The Maus was powered by an aircraft-derived engine that could barely move it. Even at full throttle, it crawled forward at just 12 kilometers an hour, slower than a man could run. Bridges cracked beneath its weight. No rail car could carry it. It couldn't even cross most roads without destroying them. It was a machine too powerful for the world it lived in. But Hitler didn't care. He believed that the Maus would change the course of the war, that its sheer presence would terrify Allied forces into retreat. To him, it wasn't just a weapon, it was a symbol. A monument to German engineering, and a final declaration that the Reich still had strength left. So, the factories kept building. Even as bombs fell from Allied planes above, engineers in underground facilities continued assembling the beast. By late 1944, the first prototype was ready for testing. Its main gun, a 128mm KWK-44 cannon, could penetrate any Allied tank from over 2 miles away. It was paired with a secondary 75mm gun, giving it more firepower than any land vehicle ever built. During the first trials, the ground shook as the Maus moved. Each step forward sounded like thunder rolling through the fields. The test drivers described it as terrifying, not because of the enemy, but because of the tank itself. The engine screamed, the gears strained, the steel treads cracked the earth beneath them. It was power, barely under control. But reality soon crushed the dream. Fuel was scarce, factories were bombed. Germany no longer had the time, the resources, or the manpower to mass-produce this monster. Only 2 prototypes were ever completed. One was fitted with a turret, the other just a hull used for testing. Neither would ever see battle. As the Soviet forces closed in, engineers at Kummersdorf received one final order: destroy the Maus, leave nothing for the enemy. Explosives were set, flames engulfed the steel beast, but even in destruction, the Maus refused to die. When the Red Army reached the site days later, they found the massive remains, the hull cracked but still intact, its armor barely scratched by the blasts. Soviet engineers stood in disbelief. They had never seen anything like it. One Soviet officer reportedly said, "If this thing had reached the front, we might not be standing here today." The Soviets salvaged what remained, combining parts from both prototypes into a single complete vehicle. That reconstructed Maus was shipped to Moscow for study. and today it still sits silent in the Kubinka Tank Museum, a relic of a war that pushed human engineering to its absolute limit. The Maus never fired a shot in combat. It never destroyed an enemy tank. It never changed the outcome of the war. But it became something more, a warning, a symbol of what happens when ambition eclipses logic, when pride builds monsters that even their creators cannot control. The Maus was supposed to be unstoppable. Instead, it stopped itself. To the Allies, it was a terrifying glimpse into what could have been. To the Germans, it was a final dream of dominance that turned into a nightmare of wasted steel. And to history, it remains the ultimate paradox, the most powerful tank ever built that never truly fought. The monster of steel, the Panzer VIII Maus.